Today's story is again shared by our old friend, Kong, the same guy who told us about the smell of ghosts last time. This incident happened on 24 December 2006, Western Christmas Eve. That day happened to be a Sunday. Kong had made a reservation at a very famous restaurant for dinner with his then girlfriend. The place is always insanely busy on Christmas Eve. But Kong pulled every string he had and finally locked the table, making a little surprise for his girlfriend. She was over the moon. The two of them ate and chatted away. Suddenly, Kong heard someone behind him calling his name. He turned around and found that the entire next table was filled with acquaintances from another company, people he knew very well. Kong greeted everyone and introduced his girlfriend. As they talked, it turned out they were celebrating the birthday of a guy named Yan. Yan's lunar birthday is on the first day of the 10th lunar month, the day known as the Winter Clothes Festival. In the Gregorian calendar, that's the 5th of November. Yet here they were on Christmas Eve, a full month and a half later. Curious, his girlfriend asked, "Why are you only having the birthday party today?" Her question made Yen and the others a bit evasive. Finally, Yen sighed and said, "If you really want to know, I'll tell you. If you don't mind, pull out the chairs and join us." The couple accepted and sat down, and Yen began to recount the strange events that had happened recently. At first, Kong treated it as idle gossip until the story ended and he was completely dumbstruck. Little did he know it would eventually have something to do with him as well. Yan's company and Kiang's are two of the top real estate appraisal firms in Tianjin, and they know each other. Around early November 2006, just before Yan's birthday, it was his turn to handle a project, appraising a property for the judicial system. The property was a foreclosed home that had to be auctioned by court order. How did it become a foreclosed home? Behind it lies the criminal case with a civil suit attached. The case was that the couple who owned the home had a violent domestic dispute. In the heat of the moment, the husband stabbed and killed his wife. The husband received a suspended death sentence and was ordered to compensate the wife's family for economic damages. The wife's family appealed for more. Consequently, the couple's marital home had to be auctioned off by the court, and professionals like Kong and Yan were needed to provide the market value appraisal. Among appraisers, this type of assignment is the least desirable. First, it's technically the simplest kind of work. Second, the unit price is low and the commission tiny. Last, payment can only be settled after the auction succeeds. So the cycle is extremely long. Still, Yin had no choice when the rotation landed on him. He couldn't refuse. After taking the project, Yin immediately contacted the judicial staff and both sets of lawyers. They scheduled an on-site inspection for early November. At that time of year, it got dark early. By a little after 5 p.m., it was already dusk. Yin, a colleague surnamed Gong, the presiding judge, and accompanying bailiff, and the lawyers on both sides arrived at the property. When they opened the door, the place was pitch black and the light extremely dim. The two lawyers refused to step inside and they stood at the doorway with their backs to the entrance. The bailiff switched on the law enforcement body camera, and the four of them, Yan, Gong, the judge, and the bailiff, entered. When the lights came on, Yan was stunned. The place was a complete wreck. Table overturned, chairs appended, broken vases, and shards of glass all over the floor. The scene of the violent struggle lay before their eyes. The most terrifying part was just outside the master bedroom. On the floor, a human figure had been outlined in white tape, and the color of the tiles inside the outline was much darker. Yin felt the room spin. No wonder the lawyers wouldn't come in or even look inside. But Yin and Gong had to grit their teeth and finish the inspection. They took photos and completed the paperwork as quickly as possible. Then got out of there. Back at the office, they still had to wrap up the remaining tasks. When Yin uploaded the photos from the camera, he discovered that not a single one was sharp. Every picture was out of focus. Yin complained, "Gong, your hands must have been shaking like crazy. Not one usable shot." Gong felt wronged. No matter how scared I was, I wouldn't end up with every single photo blurry. I'm telling you, that apartment isn't right. While I was taking pictures, I kept feeling cold air on the back of my neck, like someone was breathing on me. Yin replied, "All right, Gong, stop. We can't use any of these." In the end, they had to tell the judge and lawyers that the camera equipment had malfunctioned. The photos were unusable. They would have to schedule a second site visit for new pictures. The two of them decided to finish all the calculations that night. But that evening, while they were working overtime, things went wrong. While Yin was working late, he suddenly felt dizzy and nauseated. He touched his forehead, it was burning hot. Then came vomiting. After throwing up in the restroom, he tried to drink some water and threw up again. When he took his temperature, it was 39.7 degrees Celsius, 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Only minutes earlier, he had been fine. Now, he had a sudden high fever and was talking deliriously. At the same time, Gong also had an incident. Her face changed color, teeth chattering. She tottered to the restroom and never came back. Another female colleague who was working late went to check on her and found Gong slumped beside the sink. The colleague asked, "Gong, what's wrong?" Gong replied, "I feel awful, can't breathe." Her face had turned purple. She was clearly in a bad way. Both of them were rushed to the hospital by coworkers. Yin was put on an IV, and only then did his temperature start to come down slightly. Gong's condition was more serious. The hospital diagnosed severe herpes zoster shingles covering her body, and her respiratory system was also severely infected. It was as if she were having an extreme allergic reaction, so severe she couldn't breathe. Had she arrived any later, her life would have been in danger. Both of them were admitted that same day. Over the next half-month, both were seriously ill. Yin ran a fever every night, tormented by nightmares, and never had a single good night's sleep. Gong's shingles were so severe that her entire body was covered in pus-filled blisters, giving off a terrible odor. She suffered unspeakably. Because Yin and Gong had gone to inspect the murder scene the afternoon, and then both of them got sick out of nowhere. The whole company immediately exploded into gossip. Everybody was saying the house was dirty, like spiritually dirty, and that the two of them had been followed home by something nasty. With both team leads down, the project was suddenly headless. But it was a court job, a rush order, so the deadline couldn't slip. Upper management begged around, yet literally no one wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole. In the end, the big boss had no choice. He wrote a full explanation, filled out the official return of judicial case form, and bounced the whole thing back to the court. Nearly a month dragged by. By early December 2006, Yin and Gong were finally out of the hospital. Gong's illness had left her with permanent heart damage, though her doc basically told her, "You're young, but your heart's acting twice its age." So she quit on the spot. handed in her resignation, and disappeared to her hometown to recuperate. Yan's fever was gone, but every single night he'd wake up drenched, swearing he'd just watched the chalk outline woman crawl across his ceiling. After 3 weeks of zero sleep, his family went full panic mood. They asked around and finally dragged a legit Taoist master out of Jianfu Guanyin Temple. The monk did a full cleansing ritual, burned enough incense to set off the fire alarm, and slipped Yan a blessed talisman. That night, the nightmares stopped cold. 1 more week, and Yan could finally get 8 hours straight. By late December, he officially returned to work, looking like a man who'd just survived finals week in hell. His buddies figured the guy deserved our due birthday. They picked the Sunday night, booked the same restaurant, and told him, "Consider this your birthday party, bro. Better late than never." That dinner is where Kong walked in only to have Qiang's stomach drop. When Yan finished his story, see 2 days earlier on Friday, Qiang's scheduling queenly had pinged him on WeChat. "Hey Kong, new task." The court re-rolled the dice after the last firm returned the case. We drew the short straw. Monday for 30 p.m. you and Liu. She rattled off the exact same building Yan had just described. Qiang's blood ran iced latte cold. Kong didn't dare tell Lily what he'd heard. He just muttered something about routine site visit and tried to play it cool. Monday morning before heading out, Kong tore his apartment apart, looking for any kind of spiritual life vest. Finally found it, a palm-sized gold talisman his mom had brought back from Punning Temple in Chengdu. It's basically a credit card sized sheet of engraved gold suture, supposed to turn bad luck into good. Kong never wear the thing, but he stuffed it in his pocket anyway. Better Pirano it than possessed, right? Kong met my colleague Liu downstairs. Kong gave her the quick recap. Previous team got sick. The apartment is infamous. She listened, noted, then hits him with this gem. Mi's lunar birthday is in 19th day of the 6th month, Guanyin's Enlightenment Day. My grandma swears I've got built-in spiritual Wi-Fi. We'll be fine. We suit up, and 9-5 masks, nitrile gloves. Maybe the illness caused by poor air there. Downstairs, they met the court clerk and both lawyers, everyone masked like they were about to rob a bank. The bailiff unlocked the door. The judge stepped in first. Liu and Kong exchanged a "here goes nothing" look and follow. First thing Kong noticed, it's way tittier than Yan described. Somebody scrubbed the walls, hauled out the broken furniture, and even laid cheap laminate over the blood-stained tiles, except for one spot. Right outside the master bedroom. The chalk outline is still there, like they couldn't quite erase the ghost's parking spot. Kong did a quick SNEFF test. No rotting smell, just faint paint and industrial cleaner. Okay. Lungs calmed. Heart still jackhammering. Liu tapped my shoulder. Let's split. You shoot. I measure. Kong started snapping pics. Living room, kitchen, second bedroom, checking each shot on the camera screen. No weird blurred. No phantom fingered. Kong started to think maybe the talisman is actually working. Then Kong opened the master bath door, just a crack. A blast of freezing air whooshed out like the AC in a morgue. Mixed in is this low hiss, almost a sigh. Instinct kicked in. Kong jerked backward. Qiang's left foot snagged on absolutely nothing, feels like an invisible shoelace, and Kong stumbled. To keep from face-planting, Kong slapped a hand against the wall, but his right foot landed smack inside the chalk outline. Cold sweat popped on his neck. Through the mask, Kong caught a whiff of something sour. Moldy basement met wet dog. One heartbeat. Later, the smell was gone like it was never there. Kong looked down. Nothing on the floor. No twisted ankle. No rational explanation. Kiang's brain started the classic "did I imagine that" loop. But his gut screaming louder than a fire alarm. He sneaked a glance at Liu. She was totally focused on her work. Not a single hair out of place. He sniffed again. The weird smell was definitely gone. Forget it, he thought. Don't go looking for trouble. He finished the last batch of photos. Told Liu I'm done. And Liu called back, same here. They double-checked everything on the inspection sheet. Got the 2 lawyers to sign off. And the whole crew left the apartment at lightning speed. Kong and Liu had basically wrapped up the job without a hitch. On the way down the stairs, Kiang's left foot felt a tiny bit off, but he just shrugged it off. On the ride back, he joked to Liu, "Girl, we owe Guanyin big time. Today was smooth sailing." He figured the case was closed. He had no idea the real nightmare hadn't even started. That night he worked late at the office. Got home exhausted, took a quick shower and crashed. At some point he slipped into a dream. An exact rerun of the afternoon. Same apartment, same people, Liu, the judge, the lawyers, everything. Then he was back at the master bedroom's bathroom door. The moment he pushed it open, in the dream, the world went black. A shadowy figure wrapped in an icy gust shot straight at him with a whoosh. He freaked, stumbled backward, slammed his eyes shut, and in the dream he smelled that same raw, soul stench. At the same instant, he felt something trip his left foot. He looked down, nothing there. He looked up, nobody. It felt like someone had burst out of the bathroom. He spun around, empty. Then he saw his right foot was planted square inside the chalk outline. A razor-thin freezing wind sliced across his right ankle like a blade. The chill yanked him awake. He shot up in bed, drenched in cold sweat. It was deep winter. The quilt and all yet the sheets were soaked. The real kicker. The spot on his right ankle that the dream line had scraped was now throbbing. Like he'd just rolled it on a basketball court. Kiang's right ankle had been badly sprained back in senior year of high school. This pain was that exact injury rebooted. He flicked on the light and checked. A purple, black bruise had appeared out of nowhere. It looked like a slash mark about 7 or 8 centimeters long. Widest point maybe 35 millimeters tapering to a point. Purple, ugly, fresh. Any trace of sleep evaporated. He sat there stunned for ages, finally eased himself back down and drifted off again. Mercifully, the rest of the night was dreamless. Morning came. He sat up, right foot didn't hurt as much, but the bruise was still glaring at him. He tried putting weight on it. Nope. One touch and fire shot up his leg. He ended up limping to work. First thing, he checked on Liu. She was fine. When he told her he'd sprained his ankle in a dream, her eyes went wide. Suddenly, he remembered the talisman. He dug through yesterday's coat pocket and pulled out the red velvet pouch. Inside, the little gold plaque his mom had blessed at Punning Temple was scarred. A diagonal gash about between 4 and 5 millimeters wide sliced straight across the Buddha engraving. That settled it. This wasn't a dream injury. He called in sick, phoned home, and reached out to Yan. Family in tow. He went straight to the same Taoist master who'd helped Yan. The old monk studied Kiang's ankle. Listened to the whole story. Inspected the talisman scratch and frowned for a solid minute. Kiang's heart jackhammered. Finally, the master spoke. He told Kong that, judging from what happened to Yan and Gong, The apartment definitely housed malevolent spirits, but the two of them had reacted in totally different ways. Yan's nightmares always featured a faceless figure, chasing him with a blade that matched the wife who died by blade, turning her fury on any male she sensed. Gong's full body shingles, the pus and inflammation, mirrored infant Roseola high fever for 3 days followed by a rash. The master's verdict: 2 vengeful spirits, a mother and child pair. The wife's ghost wielded the blade in Yan's dreams. The unborn child's rage manifested as burning blisters on Gong. The crime scene, he concluded, had been a pregnant woman, 1 body, 2 lives lost in a single, savage act. Listen close, kid. What you've got here is a mother and child hunting. The wife's ghost is nasty. Sure, but she was an adult. A sliver of reason still clings to her. She scare you, maybe slash at you, but she won't finish the job. The real killer is the unborn baby. A fetus that far along never drew a single breath, never learned right from wrong. All it knows is raw, undiluted rage. That's why Gong's shingles went nuclear. Infant wrath dressed up as infant rash. The master tapped the table. Rule of thumb: the mother accounts for 30% of the danger, the child for 70%. And you, your friend, walked straight into a 2-for-1 sale. He went on. Your luck was insane. You were shoulder checked by both spirits in 1 afternoon, yet all you got was a nightmare and a sore ankle. Why? That little gold plaque from Punning Temple. The suture of auspiciousness carved on it is gentle, but deep like a river current wearing down rock. It didn't blast the ghosts away. It just refused to piss them off. When you stumbled and your right foot landed inside the chalk outline, smack on the dead woman's belly, the mother caught a whiff of the suture and realized you weren't the husband who butchered her. Credit to mom instinct, she held the baby back. Plus, the master added eyebrow raised. You've got odd wiring. Your birth chart leans toward what we call netherworld, officer potential. You see them and they see you. That night you body blocked Liu without meaning to. Stood between her and the bathroom like a meat shield. Lucky again. He nodded toward the judge and the bailiffs. Those guys. Uniforms, court insignia. State authority, built-in ghost repellent. Bureaucracy has its perks. The master set up a small altar, incense curling like lazy dragons, then produced a sterilized silver lancet. With quick, practiced cuts, he opened both ends of the purple-black mark on Qiang's ankle. 2 thin streams of stinking, ink-dark blood oozed out, about 20-odd milliliters in total. When the color shifted back to normal red, he packed the wound with herbal powder, bandaged it, and ran silver acupuncture needles along the ankle and instep. The pain, the full-blown sprain agony, vanished as if someone had flipped a switch. Kong was limp with relief. Light duty for a week, then back to the grind. He and Liu wrapped the appraisal without further incident, filed the report, and even shared an awkward high-five with the judge. While submitting the paperwork, Kong cornered the presiding judge for the full backstory. What he heard turned his stomach. The couple had been college sweethearts. Wife top law grad, big firm associate. Husband, rising star at a state-owned export company. Life was glossy magazine perfect, except for one thing: no kids. At 37, she finally conceived, quit her job to protect the pregnancy. And that's when the crux showed. Husband had been cheating for years with the company accountant. Worse, they already had a 1-year-old love child stashed away. Pregnant wife found out. Stormed his office. Caused a scene that torpedoed his promotion and reputation. The accountant's own husband started showing up with kitchen knives. Husband went from golden boy to office pariah overnight. One night, the fight at home turned physical. Wife cracked his scalp with a vanity mirror. Husband grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed her 7 times right there on the bedroom threshold. 8 months pregnant, she collapsed and bled out. 2 heartbeats stopped on that floor. He came to his senses, tried CPR, called the police, confessed on the spot. Court gave him death with reprieve, plus civil damages, partly because he called for help and partly because heat of passion. Still counts for something in Chinese law. No sympathy for the husband, but the wife and the 8-month-old child who never drew a breath. Kong couldn't stop thinking about them. Later that week, he remembered another ghost, Granny Z from 2004, who'd hovered outside her apartment door, still waiting for her son, daughter-in-law, and grandson who'd never come home. Same 8 different decade. He closed the file, swallowed hard, and whispered to the empty office, "Rest easy, both of you. I hope you find each other on the other side."